The human who dared the twin sons of Jarian Prime shone brightly over the grand capital city. Crystal towers reached into the sky, glowing under the light. The streets were filled with tall, proud aliens, the Jarians, known across the galaxy for their power, discipline, and strict caste system. No one questioned the caste. It controlled everything: who you could speak to, who you could marry, who ruled, and who obeyed. The royal caste stood at the very top, and among them, Princess Aurelia was the brightest star. Today was special. A human diplomat named Ethan had arrived from Earth. It was the first time a human had been allowed to visit the royal city of Jarian Prime. The court was curious. The nobles whispered as Ethan entered the grand ceremonial hall. His human body looked small compared to the tall Jarians, yet he walked with calm steps, wearing a simple black suit. His eyes showed no fear. The hall was silent as he approached the throne where Princess Aurelia sat. Surrounded by nobles, soldiers, and servants, she watched him with cold eyes. Her face beautiful, but stern. The first insult as Ethan stepped forward. One of the nobles suddenly spoke loudly, mocking him. "Careful, human. You stand in the presence of the royal blood. Know your place." The court laughed. Ethan simply stopped, looked directly at Princess Aurelia, and bowed politely. But then, as he straightened, their eyes met for the first time. There was a long silence. Aurelia spoke slowly, her voice sharp like ice. "You are beneath my caste, human." The court laughed again. To them, this was entertainment. A royal humiliating a lower being. They expected the human to shrink, to apologize, or to beg for mercy. But Ethan did something they never expected. He smiled and calmly said, "We will see." The court grows silent. Laughter stopped. No one had ever answered the princess like that before. Even Aurelia raised one elegant eyebrow, slightly surprised. His voice carried no fear, no anger, just quiet confidence. One of the elders growled, "How dare you speak with such boldness? You challenge our traditions." Ethan remained calm. "I am here to speak as an equal. My people do not believe anyone is born superior." The court buzzed with angry whispers, but Princess Aurelia raised her hand, silencing them. She stared at Ethan for a long moment. "Our law allows one path for those who claim worth beyond their caste," she said coldly. "The trial of worth." Gasps filled the hall. The trial of worth was an ancient tradition. Any being who dared approach royalty without status could attempt the trial. If they succeeded, they would be allowed to speak freely even to royalty. But no outsider had ever passed the trial. Aurelia expected him to refuse. No human could survive the brutal tests. "Meant for ZHA or ions." She continued, "You may withdraw now. Human, no shame will follow you if you admit your place." The entire court leaned forward, eager to watch him crumble, but Ethan spoke without hesitation. "I accept the trial." The hall exploded in shocked voices. Even Aurelia's sharp composure wavered for a moment. "You accept?" Ethan nodded. "I came here to build something new, and if that path demands proof of worth, I will walk it." Curiosity awakened. Saria sat back on her throne, studying the human carefully. For the first time, she felt something unexpected, a spark of curiosity. He was different. Most beings feared her. Even other Jarian males lowered their eyes in her presence. But this small human stood before her without flinching. Strange, she thought. He knows his weakness, yet still dares. The elder nobles began whispering among themselves, some angry, some amused. One noble leaned toward Aurelia. "Shall we make the trial difficult?" Aurelia answered quietly, her voice unreadable. "Let him face what all challengers face. If he survives, then perhaps he is worthy to speak." The first steps of a dangerous path. As the court session ended, Ethan was escorted to the trial chambers, where preparations began. The nobles watched him leave, eager to see him fail. Princess Aurelia sat quietly, her mind filled with strange thoughts. Why does he not fear us? What gives him this calm? Is it foolishness or something stronger? Deep inside, a feeling she had never allowed herself to feel began to grow. Curiosity, mixed with respect, but danger was already rising. Behind the beautiful court walls, powerful nobles who despised humans whispered in secret. They planned to do more than watch him fail. They would make sure he never left the trial alive. The challenge declared the next morning as the twin suns rose over Jarian Prime. The trial of worth was announced across the empire. Huge crystal screens lit up in every district, showing the strange news: a human had accepted the royal trial. The people were shocked. Many laughed. Some were curious. Few believed he could survive. No outsider had ever dared to walk this path before. The trial grounds at the center of the city stood the ancient arena of worth, carved from white stone, surrounded by towering black spires. Thousands of Jarians gathered in silence to witness history. At the highest balcony sat Princess Auralia, her cold eyes scanning the arena below. Beside her sat the royal council. Many noble elders whispered, "He won't last the first challenge. This will be over quickly." But Auralia said nothing. Her expression stayed unreadable. Only inside her heart, silent curiosity grew stronger. The human arrives when Ethan entered the arena, all eyes locked onto him. He looked so small compared to the giant structures and the tall armored Jarian guards, yet his steps were steady. He wore light armor provided by his embassy, a simple gray suit reinforced to survive extreme environments. His calm face showed no fear, no arrogance, only quiet focus. As he reached the center of the arena, a deep voice echoed from the council speaker, "Human, you now face the trial of worth. If you succeed, you may speak as an equal. If you fail, you return home in shame or not at all." Ethan nodded. "I understand. The first test, the Desert Run first trial, was simple in design, but brutal in practice. He would be dropped into the burning dunes, a vast artificial desert under the twin suns where temperatures reached deadly levels. He would have only limited water, no advanced tools, and must reach a distant tower before sundown. The HA or ion challengers usually completed it, with their superior heat tolerance and physical strength. For a human, it was nearly impossible. Princess Auralia watched closely as the challenge began. Inside the Dunasis, the transport drone dropped him into the burning sand. Ethan immediately felt the heat pressing against his body. The sun baked his skin, and the air shimmered around him like liquid fire. His body was not designed for this, but he was prepared. Instead of running wildly, Ethan moved carefully, conserving energy, drinking water only when needed. He studied the winds, following shaded paths created by large rocks. Panic kills faster than heat. He whispered to himself. The nobles plot far from the arena, in a private chamber. Jealous nobles met secretly. The trial isn't enough, one growled. If he survives, others may begin to see humans as equals. Another elder whispered darkly, "We have agents in place. The desert can be adjusted." They activated hidden systems deep beneath the arena to increase the desert's heat levels. Unseen to the audience, the environment grew even deadlier. The turning point hours passed. Ethan's breathing grew heavier. His legs burned. Sweat soaked his clothes. The heat rose beyond what his suit was built for, but his mind stayed sharp. He noticed birds circling above, predators looking for prey, using them as guides. He correctly guessed where water pools might exist beneath rocks. At one point, he found a small cave offering shade. Instead of resting long, he carefully calculated the sun's angle and kept moving. Auralia watched us from her throne. Princess Auralia continued to watch. She could see his body weakening, but not his spirit. Why won't he give up? She thought. Even some young nobles whispered, "He's lasted longer than any outsider before." Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought. But the elder nobles frowned, whispering, "He must fail. He cannot be allowed to win." The last push as the twin suns lowered, painting the sky in deep red. Ethan reached the final slope. The tower stood in sight. His body screamed for rest, but he pushed forward, one step at a time. With a final burst of strength, he reached the finish line just as darkness began to fall. The arena erupted with loud gasps. The council's judgment speaker's voice boomed again. First trial completed. Princess Auralia stood slowly, her eyes fixed on Ethan below. For the first time, she spoke to herself, impressive. But in the shadows of the council chamber, the secret plotters grew more desperate. If the humans survived the next trials, their centuries of control might begin to crumble. They would not allow that. Not without one final trick. The trial begins next morning. The arena of Jarian Prime was filled with even more citizens. Word had spread quickly across the empire. The human had passed the first trial. Now, everyone was curious. Could he survive the next? On the royal balcony, Princess Auralia sat silently. Her sharp eyes never left the center of the arena. She had expected him to fall quickly. Yet here he was, standing again. His small human frame looked tired, but his back was straight. His eyes were calm. Auralia whispered softly to herself, "Strange human, the council speaks." Deep voice of the council speaker echoed across the arena once more. "Today, The second trial begins, the trial of the mind. Unlike the first, this was not about physical strength. This trial would test Ethan's ability to solve complex puzzles, rooted deeply in Jarian culture tests designed for those who had grown up inside the caste system and traditions. No human had ever seen these riddles before. The noble smiled confidently. He will fail now, one whispered. His mind is no match for our history. The puzzle chamber. Ethan was led into a giant circular chamber made of shining black stone. Around him stood tall pillars with strange glowing symbols. A large crystalline voice filled the room. Solve the 3 pillars of wisdom. One mistake will end the trial. The doors behind him locked shut. The audience watched through giant holographic screens. Princess Aurelia leaned forward slightly, curious. The first puzzle, the broken chain. First pillar displayed a chain made of glowing segments. Some links were missing. The voice spoke. To rule is to connect the weak and the strong. Complete the chain using balance. Ethan studied the structure carefully. Most Jarian nobles thought only strength belonged at the center, but Ethan saw something else. He carefully placed strong links between weak ones, balancing the entire structure. The chain lit up brightly. Correct. The audience gasped. Even a few nobles shifted uncomfortably. Princess Aurelia narrowed her eyes. He understands balance. The second puzzle, the reflection thing. Next pillar showed a mirror with 2 different symbols, one for Jarians, one for humans. The voice asked, which side reflects true strength? Most Jarians would always choose their own symbol, but Ethan thought carefully. He answered, aloud, neither alone. True strength comes when both reflect each other. The mirror glowed and merged the symbols into one. Correct. The court was silent. Even Princess Aurelia's lips parted slightly in surprise. He does not just guess. He sees the secret. Sabotage. Far from the chamber, behind the council walls, the jealous nobles watched nervously. One of them growled, he keeps succeeding. We must stop him now. They activated a hidden override, secretly altering the final puzzle to make it unsolvable. A violation of sacred trial rules. The final puzzle, the impossible path. Third pillar showed a twisting maze of sharp paths. The rules required that Ethan guide a small energy light through the maze without touching the sides. But the altered maze had no correct route. Failure was now certain. The nobles smiled darkly. Ethan's commandant studied the impossible maze carefully. Something felt wrong. No solution existed. But instead of panicking, he stepped back and thought deeply. If there's no right path, then the problem itself is false. He raised his voice calmly. This test is broken. True wisdom is knowing when to refuse a false choice. The room fell completely silent. The crystal voice paused for several long seconds. Suddenly, the maze glowed bright and dissolved. Correct. The crowd awakens. The audience erupted in loud gasps. Even young nobles began whispering. He saw through their trick. He refused a trap. Princess Aurelia stood slowly, eyes wide. For the first time, real respect flickered inside her heart. This human, she whispered softly, he is not weak at all. The nobles panicked. Corrupt nobles who had sabotaged the trial froze in shock. He solved it. Their plan was falling apart. The speaker declares. Council speaker raised his staff. Second trial completed. The entire arena cheered. For the first time, voices across Jarian Prime shouted, not in mockery, but in admiration for a human. Princess Aurelia looked down at Ethan and whispered softly to herself, perhaps he is not beneath me after all, but the most dangerous challenge still waited ahead. One final trial. A trial the nobles would stop at nothing to control. Asterisk. The rigged trial sun was setting over Jarian Prime, casting long shadows across the grand arena. The people were still buzzing with excitement. A human had done what no one believed possible, passing the trials designed only for Jarians. But not everyone was pleased. In a dark chamber beneath the arena, the jealous nobles gathered again. We have delayed this long enough, one growled. If he survives the final trial, many will see him as an equal. Their leader, Elder Kavor, slammed his fist on the table. He cannot be allowed to complete this trial. Tonight, he falls. The final trial, the combat challenge. Getting next morning, the entire empire watched. The council speaker's voice echoed, today, the final trial begins, the trial of strength. This time, it was simple, a combat challenge. The challenger would face a beast bred for battle, powerful, wild, and deadly for Jarian warriors. Even this was dangerous. For a human, it was nearly impossible. Princess Aurelia sat quietly on the royal balcony, her eyes fixed on the center arena. She felt uneasy, not just because of the danger, but because of how deeply this human's courage had affected her. "Strange human," she whispered again. The beast appeared. The arena gates open. A massive creature stomped forward, its body covered in thick armored plates. Long razor-sharp claws gleamed under the twin suns. Its yellow eyes locked onto Ethan. The audience gasped. The creature was larger and stronger than what was allowed by law. The nobles had secretly replaced the original beast with something far more dangerous. Princess Aurelia's sharp eyes narrowed. She sensed the sabotage. This is not the standard beast. But she remained silent. She wanted to see what Ethan would do. Ethan faces the monster that stood calmly, breathing deeply. He had no advanced weapons, only a simple energy staff and a small shield. The beast charged forward, roaring loudly, shaking the arena walls. The audience held their breath. Ethan dodged the first attack, rolling to the side. Dust flew into the air. He quickly studied the creature's movements. Its heavy body was strong, but slow to turn. He whispered to himself, "I cannot win with force. I need to outthink it." The battle of mind beast swung its massive claws, barely missing Ethan. He stayed close to the creature's side, forcing it to keep turning. Each time the beast turned sharply, its heavy armored legs struggled. Ethan noticed small joints behind the front legs, weaker. Unprotected. He struck quickly, aiming at the vulnerable spots with his staff. The creature roared in pain, stumbling. The nobles panicked far above. The nobles watched in horror. How is he still alive? He finds weaknesses we never expected. Eldrikov clenched his jaw. "Finish him, beast." The unexpected danger as the beast grew angrier. It slammed its claws into the ground, sending sharp rocks flying. One rock struck Ethan's leg. He fell, wincing in pain. The beast charged again. The audience screamed. Princess Aurelia stood up quickly, her hands tightening on the balcony rail. The turning point. Ethan forced himself up, breathing hard. His shield was broken, but his mind stayed calm. He grabbed a handful of sharp sand and waited. As the beast lunged one final time, Ethan threw the sand directly into his eyes. The creature screamed, blinded for a moment. Ethan ran forward, using all his remaining strength, and slammed his staff directly into the weak joint under his neck. The beast collapsed. The arena fell into complete silence. The unexpected respect as dust settled. The crystal voice of the speaker declared, "Final trial completed." The audience erupted into loud cheers. Even many nobles stood, unable to hide their shock. Princess Aurelia stood tall, her golden eyes shining with a strange emotion, pride. She whispered softly, "He has earned it." The secret nobles retrieved. Corrupt nobles, pale with fear, quickly left the council chamber. "We have failed. The people will never listen to us again." But deep inside, they prepared one final act of desperation. If they could not stop the human through the trials, they would try to end him another way. The private night stars above Jarian Prime sparkled brightly as the grand ceremony ended. For the first time in history, a human had passed the trial of worth. The entire empire was buzzing. Some were shocked, some angry, but many were now curious. Could humans truly be equals inside the royal palace? A much smaller, but more important moment was about to begin. The ancient tradition be Jarian law. Anyone who passed all three trials earned the right of the first night. An ancient ceremonial tradition. It was not a right of ownership, but a ritual meeting. One night in private, face to face with the royal heir, where the challenger could speak openly without caste or council interference. In most cases, it was rarely used. No outsider had ever claimed it. No royal had ever expected to face it. But now, Ethan had earned that right. The private chamber with royal attendants led Ethan to a tall crystal chamber glowing softly with blue lights. He was told to wait. Inside, he stood calmly. His body still carried the pain of the trials, but his heart was steady. The door slid open. Princess Aurelia entered, wearing a long silver robe that sparkled like the stars outside. For the first time, they stood alone. No guards, no audience, no rules. Only the human and the princess. The tension between them for a long moment. Neither spoke. Aurelia studied him closely, his small frame, his tired but steady eyes. "You are not what I expected," she finally said, breaking the silence. Ethan smiled softly. "I hear that a lot." Her voice was cool, but softer than before. "You faced death 3 times. You had every reason to give up, yet you kept standing." "Why?" Ethan answered gently. Because I did not come here to submit. I came to offer something better, respect, understanding, peace. Ralia looked away briefly. You are beneath my caste. Or, you were. She met his eyes again, something different glowing inside her now. Perhaps your people have strength we refuse to see. The walls began to fall then took a careful step closer. The caste taught you to look down. But I never looked up at you out of fear. I saw only another person. Ralia's breath slowed. For years, she had been treated as untouchable, as something above others. No one had dared to speak to her like this, and yet, she didn't feel offended. She felt seen. I'd have never spoken like this to anyone, she admitted. Ethan smiled gently. Neither have I. The truth behind the caste for the next hour. They spoke quietly. Ralia shared how the caste system controlled every part of her life. How power meant isolation. How true feelings were seen as weakness. Ethan shared how humans, though divided by many things, fought against systems that tried to control who they could love, respect, or follow. We are not perfect, Ethan said, but we try to break walls when we see them. Ralia's golden eyes softened, and here I am, standing behind my wall. Ethan stepped even closer, then stepped beyond it. The first touch in a silent moment filled with tension. Ralia slowly extended her hand. Her hand was large compared to his. Her skin smooth and cool. Ethan gently took it. They stood there, hand in hand, to beings from different worlds, sharing something neither had expected. Respect. Connection. And perhaps something more. The growing storm far from the royal chamber. In the dark halls of the palace, the angry nobles met again. Their leader, Elder Kavor, spoke with sharp hatred. She accepts him now. The people cheer for him. If we do not act tonight, the caste will crumble forever. They prepared their last plan, an assassination. We strike at dawn. Both the princess and the human will die together. The final danger was now set. The nobles' last attempt. Twin moons of Jarian Prime hung quietly in the night sky. The city below glowed softly, as if the world was at peace. But inside the royal palace, in the dark stone corridors, whispers of betrayal filled the air. Elder Kavor stood with his loyal followers, their faces cold with anger. She accepts him. Kavor growled. She smiles at him. If we do not act, the people will follow her. The caste system will fall, and our power with it. His voice dropped to a cold whisper. Tonight, we finish them both. The assassination team prepared their weapons. Their plan was simple. Strike before dawn. Kill both the human and the princess during their private walk through the gardens. The morning walk next morning, just before sunrise. Ethan and Princess Ralia walked side by side in the royal gardens. Tall crystal trees sparkled. Around them, strange glowing birds sang softly. Ralia spoke quietly. My entire life, I believed in the caste. I was raised to see others as beneath me, but after meeting you, after these trials, she paused. I wonder if it was all built on fear. Ethan nodded. Fear is a powerful tool, but once someone dares to look past it, everything changes. They stopped beside a quiet, reflecting pool for a moment. Neither spoke. There was peace. The assassins approached in the shadows. The assassins moved. 10 trained killers, dressed in black armor, silently surrounded the garden. Their leader whispered, "On my signal." They waited for the right moment. The attack began suddenly. Sharp energy blasts cut through the air. Ralia instinctively grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him behind a large stone pillar. The assassins closed in fast. One shouted, "For the caste, for the old order." Ethan pulled a small energy blade from his belt, ready to defend himself. But he knew they were outnumbered. "We can't fight them all," he shouted. Ralia's voice was calm, but fierce. "That we don't stand alone. Loyal guards arrived at that moment. Loud shouts came from the palace entrance. A group of loyal royal guards, led by Commander Vexer, charged into the garden. Protect the princess. Blaster fire erupted. The assassins fought fiercely, but the guards quickly surrounded them. Several assassins were captured. A few tried to escape, but were stopped. Elder Kavor, watching from the distance, realized his plan had failed. He tried to run, but Commander Vexer's soldiers caught him. "Your betrayal is finished," Vexer said coldly. Kavor screamed, "You are fools. Without the caste, we are nothing." But no one listened. The people rise news of the assassination attempt spread quickly across Jarian Prime. For many citizens, this was the final proof. The caste system was not about strength or honor, it was about fear and control. Protests fill the streets. Young nobles, soldiers, even former servants began calling for full reform. No more caste, equality for all, humans and Gerians together. The private conversation later that evening, after the danger passed, Auralia and Ethan sat quietly in the royal chamber. Auralia looked at him with deep emotion. You risked everything to come here, and now you have risked your life again, not just for yourself, but for me. Ethan smiled gently. I came for peace, but I found you. Auralia's voice trembled slightly. Do you regret it? He shook his head softly. Not for a moment. They sat in silence, but their hearts spoke loudly. The walls between them had fully fallen. The council falls next morning. The High Council met for one final time. Before thousands of citizens. Elder Kavor and his co-conspirators were stripped of power and placed under arrest. Princess Auralia stood before her people, her voice clear and strong. Today, we leave behind the old chains of fear. We step into a new future together. No caste, no walls, only respect. The people cheered wildly. In the crowd, humans and Gerians stood side by side, for the first time as equals. But one final step remained, not just for peace, but for the bond between two hearts. A new future together. Skies over Gerian Prime were calm. The twin suns rose gently, lighting up a world that had changed forever. For the first time in its long history, the caste system was gone. No more strict divisions. No more walls of power. Now, humans and Gerians worked side by side, building a new future together. The day of unity in the Grand Central Plaza. Thousands gathered. Giant crystal banners waved high above. Humans stood among the Gerians, not as guests, but as equals. At the center stage stood Princess Auralia and Ethan. This was not just a ceremony, it was history. The council speaker announced, today, Gerian Prime and the Human Alliance join as partners. No caste, no superior blood, only unity. The crowd cheered, their voices echoing across the city. The personal momentous. The ceremony ended. Auralia and Ethan stood together, quietly watching the people celebrate. Auralia looked up at the twin sons, then at Ethan beside her. I once believed you were beneath me, she whispered. Ethan smiled softly, and now? She turned to him, her golden eyes full of warmth. Now I see you standing beside me. You are not beneath me, you never were. Ethan reached out and gently held her hand. And I see you as more than a princess. You are my equal, my partner, and my friend. Their hands stayed locked, firm and steady. The legacy begins. Their story spread far beyond Gerian Prime, across both worlds. Children learned how one human crossed the stars and stood without fear. How one princess opened her heart and questioned everything she was taught. In schools, young students asked, Teacher, how did humans and Gerians become true friends? The answer was always the same, because one human dared to stand, and one princess dared to listen. The first colony years later, a joint human-Gerian colony was built on a distant new world. There, humans and Gerians worked together from the very beginning, side by side, without fear. Ethan and Auralia visited often, watching the new generation grow up without the chains of the old caste. One evening, standing under the twin moons, Auralia whispered, if you had not smiled at me that first day, everything would have been different. Ethan laughed softly, and if you had not challenged me, I would never have stayed. They stood there, shoulder to shoulder, watching their shared dream shine brighter than any star. Asterisk.